Welcome to Experts Explain Trauma. Today we've got Dr. Nay joining us to answer a common question that survivors ask themselves, as well as giving us tips to help us on our healing journey. All right, Dr. Nay, thank you for being here. We have our next question. Why does silence from them feel like abandonment even when I chose no contact?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's because we're human beings. We're built for connection. We want to connect with people. And I think some of our biggest social fears are abandonment and rejection,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of them, ironically, even though they've abused us, do discard us.
Yeah, I know.
That's even the triple whammy of feeling whole. So whether you left them or they left you, it can feel more extreme if they discarded you. But also, I just think that we're wired for connection. And again, we're addicted to them. We're used to the highs and lows. We're used to a drama-free, peaceful life. We're not used to focusing just on ourselves.
Yes, that's true.
So used to being focused on them. And so then you're home and you're like, this is really calm. What's happening here? And then you have to turn the mirror back on you. And listen, here's the thing. When you're with this person, you have to self-abandon so much.
Oh, so true. So true.
Well, now, just look at it this way. Who cares if they've abandoned you or you feel like you're abandoning them? You don't have to self-abandon anymore. You can turn the mirror back on you and you get really committed to you, because the opposite of abandonment is commitment. So get committed to you and then learn to self-soothe. We have to, as adults, learn to self-soothe. No matter whether we're in a trauma bond or not, life is always going to give us issues. We have to learn to self-soothe in healthy, adaptive ways.
You know, there's also a part here where there's the transition that you go from being in that toxic relationship, and then there's a part where you're finally living in peace,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're not living without, but that in between is tough. That's
Yes.
probably one of the most
Yeah.
difficult, because especially, if you're used to chaos. I was used to chaos. And then I got tired of chaos, but I still kept creating chaos because that was my normal. And
Right.
then, and then it feels uncomfortable when there's not chaos. And you have to get used to feeling that uncomfortableness and get used to, oh no, this is the new norm,
That's
right?
right.
And now that I'm on the other side of that, when I see chaos, I get away from it as quick as I can. I see it real quick and I get away from it as quick as I can.
Right. Because you have to remember, drama and chaos, they make us feel falsely alive, right? Because
Ooh.
the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. So that's why drama and chaos can make us feel alive, because we're feeling all the time.
Ooh, that is a great explanation. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to get used to just being like a boring person on the planet.
I know, and when we're used to the chaos and excitement, it is excitement.
It
It's a
is,
negative excitement.
but it is. And it can feel like we're alive, but it's not. It's
Oh,
really draining us.
oh my gosh, that's I'm so glad you said that because I never even thought about that. Oh my goodness, that is really interesting because I didn't even think about that. So, what should someone do for that transition period when you're realizing that you're addicted to this person, you need to get away from them, and then there's the
This,
peace.
yeah, the self-care is really the most important piece. When you've been in relational trauma, always after trauma, we have to stabilize because we're very destabilized. And so self-care is super, super important to set the foundation for your healing.
So, what should they start with in their self care? Do you think would be
We
best?
always say, how are you sleeping? What are you eating? Are you moving your body, right? We know that exercise is the number one uh, antidepressant for mood issues.
Yeah, it's my stress reliever.
Yeah, more than therapy, and I'm a therapist, more than antidepressants. If you need an antidepressant, and your doctor says it's a good idea, there's so much stigma with it, but they also work during these
Yeah,
transition times.
right.
and it's important to resource yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. Maybe you want to go back to God spiritually. Maybe some sort of spiritual practice will ground you. For some people, it's nature. For some people, it's, being with their animals more. But finding things that ground you and self censor you, and then start your healing journey, because you're going to get triggered through your healing journey. You're just going to get triggered once you start to go back into life. And that's where I really work on, we all have loss of self, we all have cognitive dissonance, but the CPTSD symptoms of emotional dysregulation, hypervigilance, learning skills, how to soothe yourself, to really, speak compassionately to yourself, right?
Yes.
A huge way to deal with this is we're always shaming ourselves and beating ourselves up. You're so stupid. Why'd you fall for that? Why'd you go back again? It's like, no, that doesn't do you any good. So there's so much research of self-compassion as a way to heal depression and shame. And self-compassion is simply, I was in a trauma bond. Millions of women in the world are in trauma bonds right now. I need to speak to myself as I would speak to one of them. Or would I speak to a friend? Because self-compassion, internalized self-compassion is very soothing. So there's all these little tricks to taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself and soothing yourself, almost as you would a child again.
Right.
It's almost like parenting of yourself, really.
Right. I know, because we've spent so much time focused on them and focused on the relationship and focused on, being in survival mode, that we do forget about ourselves. And
Completely.
I mean, when I came out of mine, it was like, I didn't even know who I was. I had to literally discover who I was.
Correct. Right. That's the loss of self. Right.
Yeah.
So the only way you can do that is by going inward.
Right. So self-care, everybody, that's the most important thing to help you get through this, and give yourself a lot of grace and patience, because it is one of the hardest parts, is that transition period, because you can't go back to what you used to do, but you don't know quite where you're going yet.
That's right. And it's okay to not know how you're going to get there.
Yes. Amen to that.
Probably don't know how you're going to get there, but if you show up and do the work, you will get there.
Yeah. And just one step at a time. You don't have to take on everything all at once, just, because it can be overwhelming. Just coming out of a trauma bond is overwhelming. And so just start with the baby steps. Start with one thing, if that's what you can do.
That's right.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you, Dr. Nay. If this question resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And if you have a question that you'd like answered, you can email me at asklisatickle@gmail.com. Be sure to follow so that you can get more insightful information about trauma healing.